All right, we are rolling audio.
And video. Welcome to my dad's movie podcast. This is a podcast that focuses on directors and some of the movies that they put together. I'm Mick Johnson, the dad, and with me tonight is one of my sons, Tabor Johnson.
Hi, how you doing? Good to be here.
Yeah, what are we doing tonight?
So we are talking about John McTiernan.
I got nothing.
You got nothing?
I got to cut that part out.
We are talking about John McTiernan, famous action director who's most notable for such films as Predator. What the hell was that?
I think that was the sound effect for Predator.
John McTiernan, who is a famous action director, most notable for such films as Predator, Last Action Hero, Die Hard, and The Hunt for Red October. Two of those, which we will be talking about tonight. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about John McTiernan.
John Campbell McTiernan Jr., born January 8th, 1951, in Albany, New York. Looks like he is the son of Myra and John Campbell McTiernan Sr., who was a lawyer, and says here he was also an actor.
Okay. Turn your mic a little more towards you. It's sounding... No, other way.
This way.
There we go. Yeah. It was sounding really hollow.
That's just me. I sound hollow.
Oh, you sound hollow?
I got this throat thing right now.
You're feeling under the weather?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, sorry. Go ahead and start that back over again.
Which part do you want to hear again?
The
whole thing?
The biography, yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about John Campbell McTiernan Jr. tonight, born January 8th, 1951, in Albany, New York. He's an American filmmaker, and he's currently retired. As you had mentioned earlier, Tabor, he's best known for his action films, and it looks like he's done a lot of them.
Yep. Of those action films, it doesn't have to be the ones we're talking about tonight. It could be any of them. Which is your particular favorite?
Well, I think I've seen every single one that he's done. And probably the one that I really kind of favor is The Hunt for Red October. I think that's a really good movie, very intriguing. So, yeah.
Well, that's great. That's glad that that's the one that
That's one of them we're going to talk about.
Talking about tonight. Gosh, I would have to say that my favorite is Predator.
Oh, Predator.
I absolutely love Predator. I think that's such a fun movie, and I really wanted to talk about it tonight, but I decided that we should choose Last Action Hero as the one that we talk about.
Why is that?
I decided to pick that one because it was considered a flop at the time.
Really?
Yeah, it was considered they say that Last Action Hero was the start of John McTiernan's decline. And Arnold Schwarzenegger locked himself in his house for weeks because of it, and everyone was really bummed about this movie. Everything went off the rails for this.
Okay, and I saw it and I absolutely loved it.
Oh, I love that movie too.
Great.
But it has since had a reappraisal from critics and especially fans, and it's looked upon more favorably today. So I didn't want to talk about Predator, which is, I guess Predator was kind of, crapped on too at the time. And it's over the years has received a lot more reappraisal as well.
One thing that I really noticed about, what did you just call those? The reviews. Who are the people that do the reviews?
Critics?
Yeah, the critics. One thing I really noticed about when I listen to what critics have to say, I end up feeling almost the opposite of everything that they tell me about the movies that they're kind of dogging on.
Yeah, I find that I feel the same way. Sometimes I'll agree with the critics, but most times I end up taking the opposite stance. I mean, it's kind of impossible to say where a critic is coming from. Like, you can kind of tell sometimes a critic is someone who wanted to be a director or a writer at one point and has some kind of jealousy or animosity and kind of takes it out in the form of criticism. And then there's other times where a critic doesn't have any animosity, but is just too overly critical and sometimes can lose the entertainment in their criticism. They just lose the enjoyment of the film because they're sitting there dissecting everything.
Right.
That's why, like, when I'm reviewing something, I don't review it on the first watch. I'll watch it first and just watch the movie the first time.
Right.
And then,
yeah, I think, am I being entertained right now? You're looking at it kind of.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah, you're looking at it as a whole.
Still haven't seen that movie.
You haven't?
No.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Yeah, that sucks.
You're gonna need to stop working or something and spend a little more time just sitting around watching movies.
I know. The tortillas are getting in the way.
So you had mentioned John McTiernan, kind of best known for his action films. A couple of things that they say: he's known for often showing characters speaking in a foreign language without subtitles, which I thought was kind of interesting. But the other thing that I wasn't sure about is he's known for using lens flare in his films. What is lens flare?
Okay, so a lens flare is any time that a light hits the lens of the camera, it'll cause an artifact you'll see it on the screen, and it will depend on the type of the lens, but most times when you see lens flares, it is from an anamorphic lens. So you remember the Star Trek movies, the new ones?
Oh, yeah.
With Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto.
Yeah, those are awesome.
So those have a whole bunch of blue streaks across the screen.
Okay.
And those are the lens flares. So the lenses are, you either have a spherical lens, which is like a round lens, or you have an anamorphic lens, which is a square lens. And the square lens gives you that widescreen look. But when you're shooting with the anamorphic lens, the light will give you those blue streaks across the entire screen.
Okay, so those are flares.
Mm-hmm. And used in small amounts are very, very beautiful. I think lens flares look really nice. However, with J.J. Abrams in the Star Trek movies, like, it became a running joke that they were severely overused, and like they started calling it lens flare the movie and stuff like that.
So for John McTiernan, can you think of any movies where lens flare was used?
I saw some lens flares in The Hunt for Red October.
Did you? Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and I probably wasn't paying attention for those types of things.
Oh, and I saw some in Last Action Hero also.
Oh, okay.
I saw a lot more in Last Action Hero than I did in Hunt for Red October, though.
So what is the lens flare? Why would you want to put that in? What is that? What's that doing for the audience?
Well, most times you're not putting it in on purpose. J.J. Abrams would. Most times it's just the way that the light hits the camera. In fact, most directors end up putting safeguards on their lenses and on their lights to try to avoid lens flares. Some directors find them distracting and they want to avoid them at all costs. So it just depends on, who the director is. Some people try to hide them. Some people don't care, and if they show up, no big deal. And some people will try to take advantage of the lens flares and do whatever they can to try to make them show up. Like when I was in Oklahoma shooting that horror movie with Cody Newton, we would have someone beside the camera with the flashlight shining a light on the edge of the camera to give us artificial lens flares. There was no light source that was on set that would have given us the lens flares. So we had to make our own lens flares, and Cody decided that this scene needed the lens flare. And so
like a special effect type thing.
Kinda, yeah. So sometimes they just show up, and sometimes they can really add to the scene.
Okay. Nice. Well, according to this, he likes using them. So
Good.
a little bit of history about John McTiernan. Looks like he attended the Juilliard School before graduating with a Master of Fine Arts from the AFI Conservatory in 1975.
Okay. So, are you familiar with you know Juilliard? Everybody knows what Juilliard is. Are you familiar with what AFI is?
Yeah, I don't know AFI.
AFI is a conservatory, so it is like a kind of like a master's program. You can't go there and get a bachelor's degree. You have to already have a bachelor's degree. And when you go there, you are going strictly for your department. So they have a conservatory program for actors, directors, producers, cinematographers. They have everything.
I gotcha.
So when you get there, you are completely immersed in your program. You're surrounded by your people. But then also you get to network with the other people. I mean, if you're going there to direct, you're going to meet all these other directors, but then you're also at this school that has a ton of other cinematographers and a ton of other producers that are all there learning with you. And so a lot of very, very big people have come out of these programs.
Okay. So yeah, I always wonder, when you're looking at a movie and the director has so much influence on, how this movie's going to come out, what they're going to do, if they're going to use a lot of lens flares, these types of things. And, they probably grew up watching types of movies and stuff and watching other directorial styles and stuff. And curious about John McTiernan. And he actually said once that he was influenced by a European cinematic style and the teachings of Czech filmmaker Jan Kadar. Says Kadar taught McTiernan to memorize shots by writing them down from memory and worked. Oh, never mind. That's another part.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that John McTiernan is a very camera-focused director. A lot of times, well, I shouldn't say a lot of times, but there are times when the director is mostly focused on the performance of the actors, and that's all they care about. And they let the cinematographer focus on the camera work. But John McTiernan definitely has a vision of how he wants the camera to move. And you can see, like, I saw that a lot in The Hunt for Red October. There was this shot near the opening of the film where Sean Connery and Sam Neill are sitting in the top of the sub and it's surfaced. And there's just this shot of them talking. It's kind of like a wide shot. And then it just pulls out. And then just this sweeping helicopter wide shot and shows you the entire expanse of the submarine.
Yeah, just how big this submarine really is.
Yeah. I was sitting there thinking about that shot. That was the cat.
Yep.
I was sitting there thinking about this shot and shut up. I was sitting there thinking about this shot and how, because I'm a filmmaker, that someone who isn't a filmmaker would just be like, ooh, look at, that's cool looking. But to me, like, I realized how important that shot is because it is fully setting up the scope of how dangerous this submarine is supposed to be. That's what they want you to know, is that this thing is dangerous. It's the most dangerous sub in the Russian fleet.
Right.
And they want you to have that kind of sense of impending doom. Like, look at this giant, massive weapon. And they're telling you this with just a simple camera move.
Right. All right. So,
I'm going to open my beer.
Open your beer. Don't you think you've had enough already?
I'll tell you when I've had enough.
So here was something that was kind of interesting. John McTiernan and the run-in with the law.
Yeah, that's probably something that would come up in a podcast about John McTiernan.
Right.
You know, I'm before we get started, I'm just going to go ahead and say I defend John McTiernan. Go ahead. If you're going to bug somebody, do it. I don't care. I'm on his side in this.
I'm bugging you right now.
Yeah.
So
don't lie to the FBI.
Right. I think that's probably the bigger part of the problem.
You know, it's like, you know, growing up with you. You know, if I did something wrong, you would rather know about it, because if I find out you lied to me later, I'm going to be even more mad. Right. So like the FBI is, you know, is the angry dad. They'll be less mad if you just tell them what you did instead of finding out later that you lied to them.
Right. So pleaded guilty in 2006 to lying to an FBI investigator, but the judgment was actually vacated. But in 2007, he ended up pleading guilty to the original charge, and then there was the additional charge of perjury. Looks like regarding his hiring of a private investigator in the late 2000s to allegedly wiretap the phone calls of two people, one of whom was Charles Roven, a co-producer of his action film remake Rollerball in 2002.
Yeah, so apparently John McTiernan was kind of paranoid about this producer. This guy was allegedly talking a lot of crap about him behind his back, and every move that he was trying to make on Rollerball, this producer would undermine him and go the opposite direction. And John McTiernan credits this producer. Does it mention the producer's name there?
It does not.
I'm going to look it up.
Don't tell Alec that you don't know something and you got to look it up while you're on the air.
Yeah, that'll piss him off.
Alec is Tabor's youngest brother, who's currently down in Provo, Utah, in the film school program at BYU. And I actually forgot to mention when I was introducing Tabor, he owns Rat's Nest Productions, and actually works on a lot of films, and working on some documentaries and some stuff for schools, and so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks for the plug. So his name was Charles Roven. Charles Roven is the producer. There was a lot of decisions that Charles Roven...
Oh, yeah, I read that. He's the co-producer, Charles Roven.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. Okay, so Charles Roven would undermine a lot of the decisions that John McTiernan would make. And John McTiernan blames the downfall of Rollerball on Charles Roven. So the reason that movie is not a success is because this guy was undermining him at every turn. And so...
Are we able to pause this? Is there like a where you can pause and come back on?
Let me try. Hold on. And we're back. My dad had to go.
That was a good try, but
not as good as yours.
And we're back.
There we go. My dad had to go kill one of his cats. We're down to one now.
One too many.
One too many. So we were talking about Rollerball. And it's really funny is that all of this stuff that happened with Rollerball, all these FBI wiretappings and stuff, not the FBI wiretappings, but the John McTiernan wiretappings and the FBI getting involved. This happened years after Rollerball came out and bombed and stuff like that. So it took a while for the Rollerball to get rolling on this. Yeah, see what I did? Yeah.
Nice.
All right. I'm gonna go put myself in the hole that you... Yeah, there we go. I like to thank the Academy. I never saw Rollerball. Did you see that?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Did you see the original Rollerball?
No.
It's got James Caan in it.
Not that I can remember.
I heard that one's okay. I'd have to check it out.
So in an interview with The Guardian in 2023, McTiernan actually talks about his jail time, and I read through this and I thought this was absolutely hilarious. He says, no, there weren't any ankle tags. The prison was operated on an honor system. If you went wandering, you were trusted to come back. Let's see, far from disintegrating, I don't know what that means, as his wife told The Guardian in 2013, McTiernan says, in some ways it was great. I had worked as a carpenter all through college, so they put me with a carpenter crew, and he spent the whole summer, up at these big old Victorian houses, tearing off roofs and putting new roofs on, standing around with his shirt off in the sun. It was like he was back in college. So it sounds like he actually had a pretty good time in jail.
He went to Wise Guys jail.
Yeah.
Like Goodfellas.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
They had their own cell and they got to hang out with each other and cook pasta and cut garlic with razor blades.
Right.
Yeah. They got to hang out with the Wise Guys. That's, man. I think I'm going to join the mafia.
Yep. All right.
Anyway, should we get talking about these movies?
Let's do it.
All right. Who are we talking about? Not who. Which movie are we talking about first?
Well, I have Hunt for Red October listed first.
All right. Let's talk about the Hunt for Red October.
Okay. So, Hunt for Red October, talk about an all-star cast. They had Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, Sam Neill, Scott Glenn, James Earl Jones, Tim Curry, Stellan Skarsgård, Rick Dukeman. I mean, good grief.
They had Jeffrey Jones, Rooney.
Rooney, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't talk about Rooney.
Well, we try not to, but you bring him up every time.
This is the second time we've talked about Rooney.
Yeah. So, Hunt for Red October, set in November 1984 during the Cold War era. Cold War, that was a chilly time for the U.S. and Russia. Movie tells the story of Captain Marco Ramius, who is played by Sean Connery. He's the skipper of a Soviet Union's newest nuclear submarine, the Red October. Jack Ryan, played by Alec Baldwin, is in the CIA, and he gets involved in a tense, tangled race to find the sub before the Soviet Union does, when Ramius decides to defect and take the Red October with him. So there's the premise. Let's dive into it.
Oh, I see what you did there. Damn, son.
You're not the only one that can do
it. So we were talking about Hunt for Red October and how it was one of your favorite movies, and the only part that I remembered about it was Alec Baldwin and Sean Connery sitting on top of the submarine talking to each other, and I was like, man, that's a boring movie. I watched it again today, and that's like the last 2 minutes of the movie.
Right.
I walked in on the last two, so I missed all the action, and I was like, yeah, man, I might as well have just watched the credits.
Right.
I thought, so honestly speaking, I thought it was a little slow getting started, but then it slowly ramped up, and I was like, okay, now I'm into this. I'm really liking it. I thought Alec Baldwin did an amazing job.
Yeah, and I think this might have been kind of Alec Baldwin's kind of get into stardom movie. I think this is where he kind of took off at.
Kind of became like a star.
Right.
So I was reading that this was actually offered to Harrison Ford originally.
Yes.
Who had to turn it down. But then Harrison Ford would end up going on to play Jack Ryan eventually in Patriot Games.
Well, sure. After you see how this one did.
Yeah.
What? Okay. Well, maybe it's a good deal.
Yeah. So, I thought Alec Baldwin did a wonderful job. Sean Connery, I loved him in this. Who I I thought was the show stealer, and this was Sam Neill. Sam Neill was the what do you call a first mate of a sub? Is he the first mate?
So he's actually the submarine captain, is my understanding. Sean Connery was actually a commander, but when he was on the ship, even whatever rank you are on the ship, if you're kind of a commander or an above and a commander or whatever, if you have taken charge, you are called a captain. They don't call you commander on the ship. So I think Sam Neill was a submarine captain, but Sean Connery, being the commander who took charge of the
Red October,
the ship, the pride of the Soviet Union, since he's on it, he's the captain.
I'm the captain now.
Yeah.
So if this had gone according to the Soviet Union's plans, where this was just a test run, Sean Connery would have left the Red October and gone on to other things, other training programs, and the ship would have been left to Sam Neill. It would have been his ship.
Right. I don't think Marco Ramius or Sean Connery, he wasn't going to be the captain of the ship from then on. It was like the maiden voyage, but he set it up that way so that he would make sure that he's taking it out on its maiden voyage.
Cool. Okay. I loved Sam Neill's little monologue about wanting to see Montana.
Yes, and have a wife and
a recreational vehicle
and
a pickup truck,
cook rabbits.
Yeah, yeah.
That was America for him.
Yeah, and it made me really think about, I'm kind of in this spot right now where I'm kind of disillusioned with America because of what's going on here right now.
Yeah.
But listening to him talk about, coming to America and, starting a new life and getting that freedom, it's still better here than it is in other places,
Yeah.
So, yeah, things are not very good here right now, but, it's still better here than it is in a lot of places. And listening to him talk about wanting to start over and have his shot at the American dream, I was just like, man, that's super powerful. And when he gets shot at the end of the film, that freaking broke my heart. I was so devastated when that happened.
Yeah.
I think he's the only one who dies in this movie.
Yes, actually, I think he is.
Except the bad guy at the end, who turns out to be just some nameless cook.
Yes. Spoiler alert, by the way.
Oh, you guys have had 30. I'm 34 years old. You guys have had 34 years to see this movie, so don't come at us with.
Yeah, it wasn't the butler that did it. It was the cook.
It was the cook. Which is funny you say that the butler did it, because Tim Curry is in this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the doctor, Dr. Petrov.
Yeah.
And does an awesome job.
I thought he was going to be a bad guy. Anytime Tim Curry walks on to the screen, I'm like, he's the bad guy.
Right. I think it's just assumed.
Yeah.
If he's in a movie that's his role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of the characters, the whole thing. I mean, my gosh, the development of the characters and how they interacted with each other and everything was it was so good. It just drove everything. And, Alec Baldwin, even though he hadn't been in a whole lot of stuff, I thought he did a fantastic job of, playing Jack Ryan. And, of course, Sean Connery, he's going to be good no matter what. And especially in this, when you're looking at, you think of a Soviet submarine commander, you think, just strong and determined and intelligent. And you look at Sean Connery, and that's what you see. He's a big ball of confidence, no matter what he's doing.
Yeah.
But one of the other people that in this that I really, really liked a lot was Scott Glenn.
I was just about to bring up, like, I was going over here searching through this IMDb page, and Scott Glenn.
Yeah,
I remember seeing him in Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, yeah. He was the CIA director.
Yeah, the FBI director.
FBI director, yeah.
Yeah. And so, when I saw this, I was like, "Oh yeah, there he kind of always kind of plays a military personnel or some sort of officer or something like that. He kind of has an air of authority to him."
So Bart Mancuso is his character, and he's the U.S. submarine captain for the Dallas. What is it called? It's an Los Angeles attack class submarine, the Dallas.
Yeah.
I'll get through it eventually.
Yeah. Speaking of, I thought that was a cool scene when they're both in the Red October, the American team.
They've gone into the Red October to kind of take over.
And so you have the Soviet team and the American team both piloting the Red October together, and you have people who only speak English, and you have people who only speak Russian, but all of them speak submarine.
Right,
and just watching them just work together, and they all know exactly what to do. It was so cool just watching them. Like, everybody knew. And then Alec Baldwin being put on the wheel, and
he writes books.
Yeah. He writes books. Yeah.
Yeah. And now he's driving a submarine.
Speaking of writing books, Red October, The Hunt for Red October, is based off a book by Tom Clancy.
Yes.
And you're familiar with Tom Clancy, correct?
Yes.
In fact, I think, didn't your dad leave you a Tom Clancy book?
Not that I can think of.
Oh. Well, I don't know if you know this, but Tom Clancy, I hope I get my facts correct. I think he was never in the military, but he was very, very methodical in his writing and his research. And when he would write his books, he would write things with such great detail that when he would write his books, I can't remember which book it was, but he was put on a watch list because it was written with such accuracy that
they were concerned.
That they were like, how does someone know this? There's no possible way that a civilian could know all this.
Right.
And he's just his military knowledge is absolutely incredible. And so, yeah, this guy has written tons of books. You remember Splinter Cell?
No.
It's a video game that Briar and Nicholas and Alec and we used to play. It's a video game based off of
Briar and Nicholas, two other brothers.
Yeah, there's a lot of us here, but it's called Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, and it was like a CIA spy game, and so
yeah. Now that you say that, I kind of do. I think I remember you guys playing that.
Oh, and before we got on the episode today, Briar was just over here playing Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six.
Oh.
So Tom Clancy's kind of just freaking everywhere. I mean, he's passed away now, but his name still lives on, and he's kind of the Jurassic Park guy, Michael Crichton.
Okay.
He's like the Michael Crichton, but of the military world.
Yeah.
Just tons of books, has a lot of respect on his name, tons of fans.
Now, Rick Dukeman, he's also in it. I didn't look to see if this was one of his first things or not, but I thought it was hilarious. He has a very short part. He's in an airplane. He's a U.S. plane navigator, and they're going to drop Alec Baldwin basically into the ocean so that he can be picked up by the Dallas. And
it's funny you bring this up because I was like, oh, here's a clip. We'll play this clip.
That's right. So, but it was so funny because I'm watching Rick Dukeman and I'm thinking, well, I'm not watching a character. I'm just watching Rick Dukeman. This is Rick Dukeman in everything I've ever seen him in is this.
Yeah. It says all you can eat. It does not say all you can eat here.
Right. The exact same. Yep.
Yeah. And just put some plastic bags in your pockets, fill them up with a bunch of popcorn shrimp. And
right. The girls love that.
Yeah.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about John McTiernan's contribution to the hunt for Red October.
Hey, you need to shut up.
I need my squirt gun. Pause that.
All right.
So let's see. The driving force of the movie. You know, every movie there has to be something driving it along. Why are we even watching this movie? You know, and driving force of Hunt for Red October is, well, there's two parts here. There's kind of this surface part, which I'm going to talk about, the fear and uncertainty surrounding the Soviet submarine captain Marco Ramius. And, you know, Soviet Union doesn't know what he's doing. U.S. doesn't know what he's doing. There's a lot of fear kind of based around everything. But I was kind of thinking, you know, kind of on the surface, that's kind of the driving thing here. But really, it kind of seemed like to me that the Jack Ryan character, Alec Baldwin, I kind of felt like he kind of was the driving force in that he was kind of in between both of them. You know, he decided that he needed to try and find out what the intent of Ramius was. Is he defecting? You know, he's taking the Red October and sailing towards America, and so the Russians are out looking for him, and the Americans are out looking for him, and the intent of the U.S. is to blow the ship up because they don't know what's going on, and they think that you know, Marcos Ramius has probably gone mad. He's headed towards America, and he's gonna, you know, unleash nuclear weapons on it. And it's Jack Ryan who decides, you know, I don't think that that's what this is about. I don't think that he's gone mad. I don't think he's coming to, you know, launch missiles at us. There's something else going on here. And he kind of figures out that really this has to do with Marco Ramius's wife who has passed away, and that you know, he wants to defect to the U.S. But somehow he has to convince the U.S. at the same time that that's what is going on. Well, why would they listen to this analyst? You know, what does he know? But, you know, he does it through a series of, you know, talking about different things and talking about Marco Ramius, and he convinces, you know, the captain of the Dallas to not blow up the Red October when he has an opportunity to do it, and talks the generals to not necessarily go after and destroy the ship, and so it's kind of his faith that kind of really makes this whole thing work. Otherwise, if he wouldn't have been in the middle of this and working to see this through, then it never would have happened. The defection wouldn't have happened because, you know, Marco Ramius, he handpicked all of these commanders on the ship, and so they knew what the intent was, and evidently they all decided, okay, well, we'll defect also. They're on board with it. But the crew members, they had no idea what was going on. And so, Jack Ryan is like, well, I gotta be sure that that's what's going on here. And I gotta convince people that are going to destroy this ship. And I gotta do it before the Soviet Union finds the Red October and blows it up themselves. So,
yeah, that's
what I got.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, I think I think you hit the nail on the head there. I don't have anything to add. Yeah, without Alec Baldwin, without Jack Ryan, I think the plan would have failed.
Yeah. There's no way it could have worked out if it wouldn't have been for all of the things that he did on his side to get it to work.
Because Marco Ramius didn't account for Courtney B. Vance in the USS Dallas to be able to successfully interpret the sounds of the Caterpillar engine.
Right.
It was supposed to be undetectable, but Courtney B. Vance figured it out.
Right. Seismic anomaly.
He figured it out. He listened to these sounds and played it at 10 times speed, and they tracked it, and he goes, yeah, this is clearly a submarine. They found out what path it was taking, and without him, they wouldn't have been able to track it down. And I think, they probably would have shot him down.
Right.
And then also you have Stellan Skarsgård, who caught up to him.
Well, yeah, he
made it.
He was shooting at him.
Yeah, he made it there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you had to,
had
to have the Dallas work with
on their side.
The Red October.
The Dallas had to be on their side in order for that to work. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Jack Ryan literally saved that plan because it would have been dead in the water had it not been for him.
So where does McTiernan kind of come into play in these things, right? So you've got these characters, but how are they being directed to drive this for the audience? You're watching this movie and you're pretty vested in what's going on. You're rooting for somebody. You know what I mean? You're rooting for the Red October.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that McTiernan,
I think you're also kind of rooting for the Americans too. I think you're rooting for the Red October because you're also rooting for the Americans.
Yeah.
I think in the end you kind of want the Americans to win, and that's why you want the Red October to win, because the Red October winning is a win for America essentially, and it's a loss for the Soviet Union. Because I kind of feel like this is along the same line of Rocky IV and a lot of these 80s movies that were coming out in America. It was a lot of uber patriotic,
right?
America good, Russia bad sort of stuff.
Right.
So
I still feel that way. But yes.
But what could be more insulting to Russia than having Russians join America?
Right. That's funny. So some of the things that John McTiernan kind of brings to this, he really creates a sense of investment in the characters by really developing them, their relationship with each other, developing those relationships out. McTiernan used innovative language transition techniques such as a Russian choir singing the national anthem. You remember where that was at?
Yeah, that was at the beginning of the movie. Courtney B. Vance is listening for the Caterpillar drive, and the entire crew stops to sing the national anthem.
Okay.
And Sam Neill says, hey, we're trying to be stealthy. Should we stop them from singing? And Sean Connery goes, no, let them sing.
Right.
And then later, Courtney B. Vance is like, I heard this, engine thing, but I could have also swore that, I heard singing as well. We were talking about how he uses language without subtitles in a lot of his movies.
Yes.
Which is something that I noticed in The Godfather a couple times when I was watching it. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. It's an interesting technique when you're listening, because most times when you're watching a movie and someone's using a foreign language, they'll give you subtitles so you know what that person's saying.
Right.
But in The Godfather, they give you that foreign language, no subtitles, because they want you to feel lost. And in that scene, you're supposed to feel lost. And I think that's kind of the technique that John McTiernan is going for a lot of the time, is that you're supposed to kind of feel like you're in a foreign land. But he does not do this with Red October. At the beginning of the movie, you see Sean Connery speaking Russian with his politician. You remember at the beginning of the movie, there's the politician who has the other key.
Right.
He has the launch key, and Sean Connery has the launch key. They're speaking Russian, and they have subtitles. And at one point, he's reading something from like the manifest, and then it switches to English.
Right. Switches over while he's reading into English.
Like midway through.
Right.
And it's like...
Which I thought was really cool.
They're still speaking Russian, but that's done for us.
But now we're hearing English.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a cool technique.
Yeah.
But
and then he smashes his head into the floor.
Yeah.
Crushes his chest.
Oh, I love a good head smashing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially politicians. Man, a good politician head smash.
Right.
Ooh, band name. I'm going to send that to Alec. Another thing I noticed with John McTiernan in this movie is that the pacing kind of matches Predator a little bit, where it's kind of like a slow build up a little bit, and then it reaches the midpoint, and then it's just this downhill, just chugga 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 chugga, and then it doesn't stop.
Right. So yeah,
I think that's kind of neat.
So McTiernan adapted Tom Clancy's 1984 Cold War thriller to reflect the changing relationship between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. The direction made the film a submarine classic, with some even saying it's one of the greatest submarine movies ever made.
I mean, it's good, but how many submarine movies are there in reality?
Well, I don't know. Maybe 2? But this is the top of the pile.
Yeah.
No, I have no idea how many.
What's the other one? K-19 Widowmaker, and then I think that's it, right? Which has Harrison Ford.
So we're not going to put this in, but I'm going to look that up, and then I'm going to add that in.
Okay.
How many submarine movies there have ever been made?
We'll get to the bottom of this.
I did look up. We're going to be doing we're not going to put this in the podcast on Godzilla.
Yeah.
I did look up how many Godzilla movies have ever been made.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, what else you want to add for this one, or do you want to head to the next one?
I don't think there was enough James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones, yeah. He was, what was his character? James Earl Jones, Admiral Greer.
Doesn't he reprise Admiral Greer in the rest of the movies, though? I think he's the only actor who comes back for the other Jack Ryan movies.
Yeah, that might be. I'm not sure.
What was the other one? Patriot Games?
Yeah.
I think he comes back for Patriot Games. James Earl Jones. Let me see here. Yeah, there he is. Front and center. James Earl Jones. That's cool. Do you want to do our 1 through 5 scale now, or do you want to save that for the end of we'll save that for the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Let's move on to...
And Last Action Hero, I don't have as much stuff for that. I didn't do a lot of research for that, so I'm hoping you got stuff to say.
I got some stuff to say about Last Action Hero. Okay. So, the next John McTiernan film is Last Action Hero.
1993.
1993. So this was... it was the very next film that John McTiernan directed, and it was the very next film that Arnold Schwarzenegger starred in right after Terminator 2. So it was off a hot streak for both of these people. They were given a substantial budget, and they were expecting this thing to be a big hit, to the fact that they had a tremendous merchandising budget.
Well, they had some pretty big people in it. And were they expecting that because Arnold Schwarzenegger was on?
Arnold Schwarzenegger was in it. The script was written by 2 gentlemen who were fresh out of film school. It was called Ultraviolence, I believe. You know what? Let's not believe. Let's look it up.
Okay. So while he's looking, let's see. Following the death of his father, young Danny Madigan played by Austin O'Brien, takes comfort in watching action movies featuring the indestructible Los Angeles cop Jack Slater, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. After being given a magic ticket by theater manager Nick, who was played by Robert Prosky, Danny is sucked into the screen and bonds with Slater. When the evil fictional villain Benedict Benedict gets his hands on the ticket and enters the real world. Danny and Jack must follow him and try and stop him.
It was written by 2 film school students, fresh out of school, and they had written it with Arnold Schwarzenegger in mind. The main character, his name was Arno Slater. It was straight up written for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
And it had gotten to him, and he was like, yes, I love this. This is cool. Because he could kind of feel that the action landscape was changing. He kind of felt that his image was softening, especially with Terminator 2, because he kind of had that father figure feel in Terminator 2 with John Connor. So he was like, I'm going to,
Right. He wasn't necessarily the Terminator anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like, this is kind of the perfect direction that we're going to go with. So he signed on as a producer. They dumped a ton of money into this. Tons of action figures. A lot. None of the action figures had guns, by the way, because they were trying to really, hit the nail on the head with this PG-13 rating. They wanted to make sure that lots of kids could get in to see this movie. They spent a lot of money putting advertising on a rocket they were going to shoot into outer space. So they plastered Last Action Hero on this rocket with Arnold Schwarzenegger's name on all the rocket boosters. And then that rocket never made it into outer space because of a whole bunch of setbacks. So by the time it did get launched into space, the movie had already been out for like 5 months. And it had already bombed anyway.
Right.
And so the script was touched up by a lot of people, one of them being Shane Black, who is an action scriptwriter. Shane Black played Hawkins in Predator. So that is why he is in on this, because he is friends with John McTiernan. He was actually hired on for Predator to be a script doctor. He was hired on to punch up the script for Predator. And he said, I don't want to work on the script. I want to be an actor. And they said, okay, well, how about we hire you on for an actor and you can kind of punch up the script while you're here? And he's like, I'm not going to do that. And so they hired him on as an actor anyway, hoping that they can kind of nudge him to do it. And he never touched the script, but he ended up being an actor on the movie anyway. He stayed close friends with John McTiernan. And so he ended up working on this script and helped touched it up a little. There was more rewrites afterwards, but a lot of the Shane Black stuff is still in here, like particularly the Leo the fart joke with the gangster that they put the tear gas into.
Right.
Another person who received no credit for working on the script was Carrie Fisher, who played Princess Leia in Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
So there was a short time where Carrie Fisher wasn't getting a lot of acting work, so she would take side work as a script doctor. She would punch stuff up and kind of add female characters to scripts. And, a lot of times, especially in the 80s and 90s, scripts were written by men, directed by men. And so to make sure that there was some sort of like relatability to women, they would get some like women writers to help add some sort of stuff to it. So Jack Slater's daughter was added by Carrie Fisher. So that character exists because of her. All right. Well, let's talk about the plot. It's about a young boy who lost his father.
Yep.
And so he spends all of his time going to the movies. And so he is hanging out.
So is he looking at Jack Slater as kind of a father figure?
That's something that I was wondering about this time around. I've seen this movie 100 times, and not once have I ever picked up on that. And I think this time around I started to pick up on that, but I don't think that it's really telegraphed very well. There's also a part at the end of the movie where, remember Gandalf comes out? Not actual Gandalf, but the guy, The guy that plays Gandalf comes out of the screen as Death. Remember?
Yes, that's right.
And he goes to see Jack Slater and he goes, I was just curious. This man is not on any of my lists. And Danny's like, you can't have him. He goes, well, I'm not going to take him. And he goes, but you're on my list. And he goes, but you die, you die a grandfather. And I guess that the whole point of that was that Danny has some unresolved issues with death taking his father.
Okay.
And now death has come for his new father figure.
Right.
But I never really picked up on that, and I kind of needed like articles and YouTube videos to kind of help get me there. And so I don't think that just watching it just as it is did enough of the legwork. So I think, I don't know. Did you get that when you were watching it?
Yeah, that's why I said it.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm an idiot. So Danny goes to the movies. He is friends with an old man named Nick.
Yep.
And this was okay in the 90s.
Robert Prosky.
Nick gives him a magic ticket that was given to him by Harry Houdini, and it has magical properties.
And he never uses it.
Never uses it.
Yeah.
That's I think that's an interesting story development too. It's this fear that a lot of people live with, like what harm is there in trying? He had this thing his entire life and he could have done something with it.
Yeah. There's some fear in, there's the what if. There's fear in, like, what if this doesn't happen? It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Houdini gave me this and, it's supposed to do this. And what if it's all just made up? What a disappointment this is going to be. So it's maybe a little better to not even try and just keep it in your head that, it's real and it works, but don't ever actually try it just in case it doesn't and let you down.
There's so many times that I've done that where I would rather not try so I don't have to face the disappointment.
Right.
But it's such a good lesson to learn, you never know until you try.
Well, and that's kind of one of the reasons you want to, the disappointment usually comes from how we build things up in our own head. We're disappointed by what we created in our own minds and what we think should happen. And so there's the letdown, and the disappointment is something that we created anyways.
Danny gets the magic ticket and he is watching Jack Slater 4, and a bomb flies through the screen, goes off, and launches him into the movie, and the adventure begins.
Yep.
So now he's in Jack Slater 4, and he is armed with the knowledge of every action movie he's ever seen, because he's seen so many movies, so he has this advantage. He knows what Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to say. He knows when he says, I'll be back.
Right.
He knows all these things. The very first opening scene is so freaking cool. You get this opening car chase with all these guys who are just stuntmen who have been in the industry for, over 20 years. So that they're going to be thrown around and lit on, there's a fire burn. There's guys thrown out into the sky. There's just so many cool stunts. They got a soundtrack by AC/DC. They say that the soundtrack for Last Action Hero alone made most of the movie's money back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the soundtrack is just insane. Especially that AC/DC song. I listen to that AC/DC song all the time. And it's not on any of their albums. So you have to get the Last Action Hero soundtrack, or you can listen to it on Spotify now, but for the longest time the only place you can get it was the Last Action Hero soundtrack. And there were so many cool freaking songs on that soundtrack.
Right.
Then we are quickly introduced to the bad guy of the movie, who's Charles Dance, who is the one-eyed Benedict. What does it give Benedict's first name? No, just Benedict.
Just Benedict, yeah.
He's so cool. I think he makes this movie. Without Benedict, I don't think this movie would be as good as it actually is. He is so freaking cool. There's this there's this amazing part in the movie where he gets the magic ticket and he puts his hand through the wall and he's starting to finally figure out, oh, Danny's not a liar.
Right.
He actually did come from this other parallel world and I can travel through it too. And then he looks directly at the camera and says, if God were a villain, he'd be me. And I just, it's so cool. And there's something that I noticed the second on this watch through is that he's talking to the camera the entire time he's doing this monologue. And the camera does a pan with him. And while it's panning, you can see the camera crew in the reflection of the window. So you can see the entire camera crew as he's sitting there doing his monologue. It's so neat. And
it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah. At least I think it is. And if it's not, it's a really, really cool accident. I mean, it's so neat. So Benedict is he's the main bad guy of the film, but he's actually the secondary bad guy of Jack Slater 4. The main bad guy, his name is Vivaldi, I think. He's the head of the crime family. And he's always talking crap behind his back. It's so funny. He's always using all of these figures of speech incorrectly.
Right.
And one of my favorite ones, it goes, "What's this? You're doing a 360 on me." And he goes, 180. 180. Right. If I did a 360, I would go all the way around and be right back where I started from. Right. But it's so, man.
You know, something funny is I've had to talk to people about things before, and I have to say, do a 180, but 360 pops in my head, and I have to stop for just a second and think, okay, I think about the movie. 360, what does that mean? That means I'm turning all the way around and coming back to the beginning, right? So that movie actually has saved me a couple of times to not be the Sicilian schmuck.
Yeah. There's another villain in the movie as well, played by F. Murray Abraham, who, as you know, played Salieri in Amadeus.
Yeah.
He killed Mozart.
Right. One
of the lines that...
It was about time.
Yeah. Screw Mozart, man. Talk about overrated. One of the lines that our family quotes all the time in this house is, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And then it's, practice! John Practice, how are you, you old SOB? Right.
And with that, guess who's going to Carnegie Hall?
That would be Nick.
Nicholas.
My brother Nick is going to Carnegie Hall.
Going to be singing.
He's been practicing. John Practice. So Danny ends up joining forces with Jack Slater, and they have their adventure in Slater 4. After Charles Dance discovers the magic ticket, they take their hijinks out of the Slater 4 world and into the real world, where they discover that the rules have now changed. So now, because they are in the real world, Arnold Schwarzenegger can't punch through glass anymore.
Playing chicken doesn't work.
Playing chicken doesn't work, yeah. Oh, speaking of playing chicken, this watch through, I was noticing that every time they were playing chicken, when you listen to the music, bow, 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 and then bow, buck, 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 buck. The guitar does like this buck buck noise, and I was like, oh, that is so genius. That is the coolest thing ever. I thought it was so cool. Oh, and not to jump back to Red October, but the music that was composed for Red October, did you know that that's the same composer that did the music for RoboCop?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah. And RoboCop is an amazing soundtrack.
Yeah.
That's a movie we'll have to talk about in the future. I love RoboCop.
Yeah.
Did you ever play that video game, RoboCop Shooter?
I'm not sure I want to talk about that.
Sorry, Nicholas. We'll edit that out. Cut that. So they go to the real world, and now they have to play by Danny's rules. They go from sunny LA to rainy New York. I think one of my favorite moments from this movie is when Benedict goes to New York, and he sees those guys mugging that dude, and they're like, "Quick, get his shoes, get his shoes." And he's like, "They took his shoes?"
Right.
And then he shoots that guy in the middle of the street, and he goes, "I've shot somebody and I wish to confess." And then the guy goes, "Hey, shut up down there."
Right.
And he goes, he's
not in a movie anymore.
Yeah. And here, Jack, the bad guys can win. I think, and we never talked about Tom Noonan. Tom Noonan plays...
he's the Ripper.
He plays the Ripper. And I think that he's a really cool character. I really like Charles Dance as Benedict, but when we were watching this movie growing up, Breyer really loved the Ripper. I don't know why Breyer loved the Ripper so much. That was just kind of his favorite character.
I think Breyer maybe has some Ripper tendencies, and he can relate to him.
Yeah.
So that might be it.
That opening scene where they're on the roof in Slater 3, and he's like, "Lose the piece, Jack." And he throws the gun. "Just one gun, Jack? You got to be kidding me." And he just starts throwing all those guns out.
Right.
Oh, and then he goes, "Now step away." And he goes, "Chop, chop." Breyer used to say that all the time. He'd be like, "Chop, chop." The movie ends with Charles Dance shooting at Jack Slater, runs out of ammunition, and Jack says, "Gee, Benedict, you made the classic movie mistake. You forgot to reload the damn gun." He says, "No, Jack, I just left one chamber empty." Shoots him, boom, knocks him to the ground. So then Jack gets shot, and now he's in the real world. This is a real gunshot wound. This man can actually die.
Right.
So now we got to get him back to the movies. Jack shoots Benedict in the eye. He blows up. Oh, that sounds really out of context. You don't just shoot somebody in the eye and they blow up. Benedict has a glass eye, and he changes it throughout the movie. And every so often, he will have an explosive glass eye that he uses as like a backup measure. If he has to escape, he will drop that explosive eye, and he'll use it to blow up the place that he's at so he can make a quick getaway. But Jack shoots him in the eye and blows him up before he can make his getaway. That's what kills Charles Dance.
Right.
That is the end of Benedict. We will see him later in Game of Thrones. They have to get him back to the movies, but the ticket got blown up with the explosion. So the only thing that they can do is get him back to the movies. And when Nick gave him the ticket, he ripped it in half and put the stub in the ticket box. So they get the stub, and the magic is still on the ticket, and they get him back. When they get him into the movie, the doctor that sees him says, "Is this some kind of joke?"
Yeah, what's the problem?
Yeah, this is just a flesh wound. Like, I wouldn't even call this a flesh wound. Get up there. And so, Danny kind of finds that father figure and gets the adventure of a lifetime. And I don't know why this movie received such critical distaste. I think this is an awesome action movie. I think it's an awesome kids movie. Do you think it became like a cult classic? You see that a lot when movies just in the beginning, they don't seem to produce like everybody thought they were going to. And then later people just love them. Yeah. I don't know what causes that. I guess sometimes movies are just ahead of their time. I think, maybe it's because it's a parody, and parodies making fun of action movies aren't going to do well when people are still kind of in the mood for action movies.
Yeah.
But we kind of don't do action movies anymore. At least not like steroid giant guns action movies anymore. Like we're kind of in the John Wick kind of action movies.
Right.
And if we were to release a John Wick parody right now, I think it might have the same effect. I think
probably wouldn't do that good.
I think it might tank.
Yeah.
But give it 15 more years, everyone would be like, "Oh man, that John Wick parody, that was ahead of its time." I mean, I think that's
so the stuff that we've talked about here under Last Action Hero, relate a little bit of that to John McTiernan.
John McTiernan.
Yeah,
so
what do we see in? Sorry, I got to turn towards my mic. What do we see in this movie, and we can say, yeah, that was direction. That was
so lens flares, first of all.
Okay.
Second, a lot of people thought that John McTiernan was the wrong choice for this movie.
Oh.
They were almost going to give it to John Landis, which is it's really funny. We keep coming back to John Landis. He kind of was a big player in this era.
You're a big star now, John Landis.
Yeah. John Landis he had a very sharp sense of humor, and he was very good at blending genres. So with American Werewolf in London, he could do that horror movie, but also have like a sense of humor with it as well.
Yeah.
And everyone figured that he could do the same. He could do an action movie and do have some comedy with it as well. And everyone thought that, if you were going to do an action movie, you should have a guy who is funny and can make fun of action movies, make fun of it. You shouldn't have the guy who does the action movies make fun of it.
Yeah, I could see that thinking.
But I feel that, John McTiernan was up to the task. I think that he did an awesome job. I think that this late in the game, he could kind of see the action tropes starting to develop as well. I think Arnold started to see the tropes develop as well. And Arnold started to see the tropes develop in himself. He started to see his stereotypes. John McTiernan started to see his stereotypes. And because they started to recognize these stereotypes, they were able to take advantage of them and make them funny. And I think they did, a really good job. And we got a really good action movie. And it was really funny too, because it couldn't just be a silly goof. It had to be an action movie also. And that's what it was. It was an action movie. It had everything that it needed to be an action movie.
Right.
But it also was very funny. It broke the fourth wall with, Charles Dance. And I think John McTiernan knew exactly how to play the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that he did a great job with it.
And my understanding is that on the set of that movie, and I also heard this a lot about Predator, is that he was a very, very friendly collaborator. That you can go and talk to him about anything, and he would almost always take your ideas and try to weave them into the shot that they were going to do. And I think I remember hearing something about a shot where they had Danny in a harness for a shot that they were going to do. And Danny started to pass out, and they called cut.
Danny, the little boy.
The little boy.
Austin O'Brien. Okay.
Yeah. And he started to gasp for air, and he said, "No, don't ever. No. Don't, he's like, I was afraid I was going to, ruin the shot." He goes, "I do not care." He goes, "Your safety is what's most important. I don't care if you're afraid of ruining the shot. I need you to be safe."
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's very important. You'll see a lot more of that now, but you didn't see that much of it then. A lot of times directors would kind of skirt actors' safety to try to get the shot.
Right.
You kind of saw James Cameron doing that a little bit. But it kind of makes me happy to hear that John McTiernan was, looking out for people.
He was a director for the people. We can edit that out.
Yeah, but he wasn't a director for the producers. He would bug producers.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway. So
he is currently not working on any directing projects.
He's also currently not in prison, so that's good too.
He's not in prison either, correct. Last thing I read about him, he's focusing on uncredited script doctoring for other filmmakers.
I also heard that he shot a like an ad for a video game. That's the last thing that he did.
Yeah, I did read that too, yep.
You know, if he's still around, he should come back, you know?
Yeah.
We don't have any 80s style action movies anymore, and I kind of think that it's kind of time for those to come back, at least for a little bit, you know? We don't have any diehards anymore. We don't have any Predators anymore. Well, we have tons of Predators, but not like Predator movies, you know?
Right.
80s action has been kind of dormant, and, you know, growing up with that, I really miss it. I haven't seen any of the John Wicks, so
I've watched those, and I like them, but you know, I like different movies for different reasons, and I don't need a John Wick movie to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie to enjoy it for what it is. And it's the same way with, you know, Last Action Hero and Predator and those types of movies. You know, I like those action movies for how they are, you know.
Yeah.
And then John Wick is just a different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You have anything else you want to add?
What's the 1 to 10?
Are we doing 1 to 10? That's how we're rating it?
I don't know. What did we do before?
I think we did 1 to 5 with, or I guess 0 to 5 with half stars. We're doing the letterbox scale.
Okay. 0 to 5.
0 to 5.
5's the best.
5 is the best. 5 is The Godfather. 0.5 is Apollo 18.
This sounds a lot like the last podcast we did.
Yeah.
So Hunt for Red October for me, that's at least a 4.5.
4.5.
Yeah.
That's pretty high.
Yeah.
I would give Hunt for Red October a 3.5.
All right. And Last Action Hero. As much as I enjoyed it, and it's very entertaining to me, yeah, I'd probably say it probably a 3.
I would probably give that one a 3.5 as well.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So a 3.5 for Last Action Hero and a 3.5 for Hunt for Red October. Those are my scores. All right. Well, if there's nothing left to add, we will go ahead and sign off.
Thanks for listening to My Dad's Movie Podcast. We had a lot of fun creating it, and we hope you enjoyed it.
For more content, please check us out at Facebook and YouTube at My Dad's Movie Podcast, or visit our website, mydadsmoviepodcast.com.
And always, if you'd like to help support us, please check out our Patreon at My Dad's Movie Podcast.
Thanks for listening, everybody. All right.
And we're gone.
Yeah. Let's get the hell out of here.